You are watching the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.tecntv.com. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Permanent Associates. I'm your host with the most, the one and only, Randy Perm. Nah, seriously, I hope you all had a great weekend and all that good stuff, and you stayed out of trouble and you didn't kill anyone, although they probably deserved it, but you didn't do it because you practiced great restraint and all that good stuff. So, but no, seriously, hope you all are doing good. And today we got a jam packed show today. This is kind of like we're ending the Origins of Humanity series. You know, it was a six parts now. Yeah, six 7 parts series, and we're putting that to an end. We're putting it to bed. I think everyone out there has gotten it that we all are family, and we just separated over time, just like how your current family is today. We just moved away. We came into our own, and we just hate each other. So that's just the way the world is. And so I hope you all enjoyed the series. Like I said, this is the final installment of that, and we also are going to segue into, I guess you could say, our next series, which is kind of like addressing the psychology of transgenderism and the trans movement. So without further ado, bring my homegirl Tiffany on and see how she's doing out there in California, IA, and get it on. Tiffany,
Hello. Hi.
hello, hello.
How are you?
I am living the legend. I am sleepy, but I am good. I think I
Okay.
think I'm gonna go back to bed here in a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see what the day brings. Uh, my condolences to you and the state of California on the passing of Senator Feinstein. And I'm not being funny.
Yes,
I'm
thank
being
you.
serious here. She was. I'm. How can I put this? I blame the Senate. I blame. Yeah. I blame the Senate. I blame the president. They should have invoked a. Let's just expel her from Congress to make her stay at home so she can live out her last days in peace instead of putting a toll on her body, in her mind to fly her back and forth from California to DC every week, every couple of weeks, whatever it was, and make her work and all that stuff. Although she wanted to do it, I got that, but someone is doing that for like almost 50 years. That's kind of like what they know. So it was kind of like it should have been incumbent on the Senate to say, you know what, let's just do this kind of like as a favor to her. Let's just expel her from the Senate. Let's vote her out, send her home so she can live out her last days. That's what I
Well,
think should have done. They should have did, but that's just me.
well, I kind of agree with that, but when you are so involved in completing whatever task for the people,
Hmm.
you are committed and to the death, as
Literally,
in this case,
yeah,
right? And
literally.
I understand that. I really do understand
I
that.
do
I've
too.
had a family right? I had a family member, I mean, last day, wheel themselves into the office with a wheelchair and then died the next day, right? Or later that night or early in the morning. So
Yeah.
got home, I guess it was like 4 hours they were at home and then passed. So, you know, to someone who is really passionate about what they do, I'll give her that,
Mm-hmm.
as a
No doubt.
singer, wanting to do things for the public and you just never give up. You want to put that last signature on the
Mm-hmm.
dotted line and see if a bill gets passed or something like that, whatever is going on. But it
Right.
really speaks to someone who is servicing the public.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I totally agree. I get it, but I think when once it was showing signs that her mental was just gone and she didn't even know where she was at half the time. Yeah, it to me I'll be like, okay, guys, let's go ahead and bring it in. Let's huddle up. Let's talk about this and let's do the hard part, and let's just send her home. I
Right.
get it.
So, right. Well, hopefully during that time, and we still know each other, I'm going to bring this up to you on your deathbed and say, we need to pull the plug or whatever we got to do because remember,
Hey, yeah,
hey,
yeah.
I
If
have
I'm
it's recorded. It's recorded that
Yes, it is.
you want to go home to glory and not sit around.
Yeah, yeah, very true. I often think about that. It's like, okay, what would happen if I became to the point where I was not lucid enough to realize, know what's going on, be, cogent in the, conversations and everything else. Yeah, go ahead, just sit me down somewhere and just let me go. It's just for the
Oh
better
yeah,
favor.
I'll probably be the one. Like, there's no use in me carrying this out.
Yeah, I
Let me
rather.
get the
I,
pastor here.
yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to be the burden. I don't want to be a burden on anyone. It's like if I'm just like that screwed up to where I can't function on my own, let me go. Just don't worry about it. I'll see you again one day, either in heaven or hell. Just whatever, however the stars may fall. Just let me go. It's all good. But it's that's just the way life is. It's we're here for a reason and a season, and we go. And whatever happens after that, either you
Yeah,
come back if you believe in reincarnation, and you either come back and
right.
as a different person, or you're gone for eternity into the heavens. So it
Hmm.
is what it is, and I'm
I
okay with that.
understand that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go too when it's time. I'm not gonna say,
yeah,
oh, let me just my last breath, my last step. My no, it'll be
right.
like it's time. I've contributed all that I can to
Can.
humanity, and
Hmm.
I'm a humanitarian, so I do understand wanting to make sure that humanity is good
Right.
before I leave, right?
Yeah,
But no,
and yeah,
I
that's
agree with
I am.
you.
Yeah,
Time is when it's there, just
is.
understand that and move on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We already know. Well, we already know we're gonna die. It's just a matter of when and how, and I can't worry about either one. So it's just you walk in faith and hope that you get to see the golden years, and if not, oh well, it is what it is. But like I said, we got a jam packed show today, so we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna get started with the first
Hmm.
video. This is the descendants of Abraham, so this is like the origins of Arabic people and the people around Qatar or Qatar, as some will pronounce it. But we're gonna get into this, and then we're gonna talk about it on the back end. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. There is a country that arouses a lot of interest in all other countries around the world. Located in the Middle East, this country has Semitic roots and is descended from Shem. We receive many requests related to the descent of Shem on our channel, although we already have several videos about the descendants of Ham and Japheth. We are just at the beginning of exploring Shem's ancestry. In today's video, we'll cover a country that is part of that lineage, Qatar, an Arab and Semitic nation in the Middle East. Qatar has a rich history and played a significant role in ancient trade routes connecting different civilizations. From biblical times to the present day, this country has been the scene of remarkable events and cultures in constant interaction. We will explore how these elements intertwine with the biblical narrative, revealing the ancestral trajectory of the Arabs of Qatar. We decided to create a video about the origin of the Qatari Arabs, as there is an intriguing question: are they descendants of Ishmael or other children of Abraham? If you are interested in this subject and are already subscribed to our channel, please leave your like and comment on our series. Help us share this video with people curious about this country, where last year's World Cup was hosted. If you are not yet subscribed to our channel, I ask that you watch the video until the end. If it is relevant to you, leave your like and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. With that said, enjoy another video from our series, The Origin of Peoples According to the Bible. Everyone should already know that this country hosted the World Cup, held in the Middle East, in Arabia, known by the name of Qatar. But have you ever wondered where the Arabs of Qatar came from anyway? Who would be the ancestor of the Qatari or Qatari Arabs in the Middle East? Currently, there are about 13 purely ethnic and Semitic nations in the Middle East. However, there are also approximately 22 Arab Islamic nations in the region, descended from mixed Semites. When talking about Arab peoples and their tribes, it is often assumed that Ishmael is the father of all Arabs. However, biblically, this is not the case. Without a doubt, Ishmael is one of the most interesting figures in the Bible. Addressing the origin of Arab peoples involves exploring their relationship with Ishmael. However, Ishmael was not the only progenitor of the Arab peoples. There are other Arab tribes and Arab peoples who are not direct descendants of Ishmael, but of other biblical characters. For example, we have the Arameans, who are Syrians, and we even have a video about their biblical origin here on our channel. They are not descendants of Ishmael. Likewise, the Edomites in Jordan today are not descendants of Ishmael but descendants of Lot, Abraham's nephew. Although they have their own distinct origins, all Semitic peoples have something in common, as they are part of the same ethnic group, known as the Semitic group. They are called Semitic peoples due to their ethnicity that originated from Shem, one of the ancestors of mankind after the flood. Now, when addressing the Arabs of Qatar, it is important to mention that they, like other Arabs, are part of the Semitic peoples and have ancestors coming from Shem. However, the Arabs of Qatar are not direct descendants of Ishmael. In fact, they originate with Abraham, specifically through his second wife, named Keturah or Turah. The Bible reports that Abraham remarried after having Ishmael, his firstborn, and Isaac, his son of promise. In the book of Genesis, chapter 25, it is mentioned that Abraham married another woman named Keturah, and by her they had children named Zinram, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak and Shwan. It is common for people to focus on Abraham's first two sons and end up forgetting that he had other sons, who were responsible for the emergence of several nations in the Middle East. In the case of Qatar, one of the sons of Abraham by Keturah was the ancestor of the Arabs of Qatar. The 6 children of Abraham gave rise to several countries in the Middle East, the main ones being Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and Qatar. These countries have their origin directly from Abraham, through his wife Keturah. The Bible also mentions in Genesis that Jokshan begot Sheba and Dedan. The descendants of Dedan were the Asherites, Lethasite, and Lumite, Genesis 25 verse 3. One of the best-known peoples, right after the Ishmaelites and the Israelites, would be the people of Midian known as the Midianite Arabs, descendants of Abraham and Keturah. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Enoch, Abida, and Eldah. All of them were descendants of Keturah. The scriptures speak even more about these 6 sons of Abraham, who gave rise to 6 tribes in the Middle East. In Genesis 25 verses 5 to 6, the Bible reports that Abraham transferred all his possessions to Isaac, the progenitor of the Israelite people. As for the children of his concubines, such as Hagar, Abraham's first concubine and mother of Ishmael, father of the Ishmaelites, and Keturah, his second concubine who became his second wife, Abraham gave them gifts and sent these children to live far from Isaac, in the land of the east, still alive. The Bible gives us some information about the whereabouts of these 6 sons of Abraham, and Qatar is one of the regions where Abraham's descendants with Keturah would be located. However, it is impossible to know precisely which of the 6 children gave rise to Arabs in Qatar. What we can say with certainty is that one of these 6 children is responsible for this origin. Just as we know that Midian gave rise to the Arabs of Saudi Arabia, geographically, the neighboring nations of the country of Saudi Arabia, such as Qatar and Bahrain, are direct descendants of the other sons of Abraham with Keturah. In the Bible, Midian is associated with 2 main aspects. First, it is known as the place where Moses met his wife Zipporah and lived for many years before returning to Egypt to lead the Hebrew people out of slavery. Second, it is mentioned as the homeland of the Midianites, a group of people descended from Midian. The Midianites were Semites and were part of the region's nomadic population. They were known for their involvement in trade and for being shepherds of flocks. In the Bible, the Midianites are portrayed in some passages as adversaries of the Israelites during their journey through the desert. Responding to a frequent doubt that many people have and some may not know, the Arabs of Qatar are indeed descendants of Abraham and belong to the Semitic ethnic group, being direct descendants of Abraham in a pure way. Regarding the origin of the name Qatar, etymologically, it is believed to derive from Qattara, which possibly refers to an ancient city called Zubarah, an important commercial port in the region. Zubarah was founded in the late 18th century by an Arab tribe called Al-Buwaynan, which was known for its involvement in trade and for exploiting the commercial sea routes between the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Peninsula. The city grew rapidly and became an important center of commerce, especially in the trade of pearls and goods from India and the Persian Gulf. The word Qattara first appears on Ptolemy's map of the Arab world. In antiquity, about 3,000 years ago, that is, 1,000 years before Christ, the Arabs of Qatar, descendants of Abraham and Keturah, did not speak the Arabic language that we know today. They spoke a Midianite-like dialect or variant, an archaic form of Aramaic dialect. As for the ethnicity of the Arabs of Qatar, as well as other Semitic peoples, they have a yellowish or beige skin tone, which tans easily under the sun. Generally, they have an arched nose, a full beard and wavy or curly hair, like most Arabs. Despite Qatar being an Arab country in the Middle East, it is important to mention that there are many foreigners of Indian origin living there. In addition to the significant presence of foreigners of Indian origin in Qatar, the country also attracts a wide range of international professionals due to its economic growth and rapid development. These days Qatar is known to be a global business hub and home to several multinational companies. This results in a diverse population, with people of different nationalities and cultures living together and contributing to Qatari society. In summary, Qatar is a country that stands out not only for its Arab identity, but also for its multicultural population and for being an attractive destination for international professionals, sportsmen and tourists from different origins. Leave it in the comments which people do you want to be represented in the next video. Based on Genesis chapter 10. I hope you enjoyed this video in which I discussed the origin of the Arabs of Qatar, who are descendants of Shem, more specifically descendants of Abraham and Keturah. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video and share it with people who are also interested in curiosity about the Arabs of Qatar. See you soon.
You know, this was a very, very highlighting, interesting video. And I say that because, you know, we automatically assume when we hear the word Semite, we think about the Jewish people, you know, and the connotation behind being anti-Semitic is automatically assuming that you're talking about, you know, hating Jewish people that are out of Israel. But here it's, you know, you're looking at a broader spectrum of Semite people. You're looking at, you know, you're talking about general Arabs. Either they're from Qatar, they're from Saudi Arabia, UAE, so on and so forth, the Middle Eastern region. So I think that will speak to a broader conversation later on, but I want to get your thoughts.
Yes.
Your thoughts.
Um, so just to kind of talk about the Arabic people, um, they were part of the invention of language, right? So
Mm.
remember, okay,
There you
I
go.
talked about how the origin came from Ethiopia and the translation thereof, right?
Hmm.
So they had their role to play in some of these things too. Now, again, the language is very hard to interpret and to understand. So some people developed other words,
Yeah.
the same word, maybe a different meaning.
Hmm.
Um, so it's highly likely that because of the mispronunciation of some of the words and wanting to form different definitions and meanings of things that took place, but the Arabic culture, I should say, were heavily involved in language
Yeah.
and
No.
the invention of language.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They were, and as we saw in the video here, they say it was either Qatar or Katura. It just depends on who you are, basically, and how you pronounced it. So the translation and the spelling, the meaning, all that stuff changed over time, or it could have meant the same thing, but based on who you were, like your culture, where you came from, your background, you may have just said it and spelled it differently because there was no unification of language, which will bring us to this next video, talking about the linguistics, the origins of languages. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It is something interesting that no matter where you are in the world, there is some kind of commonality amongst the languages. You just have to be able to sit down and figure out what they are. So, ladies and gentlemen, next show.
Pardon.
Welcome to the Unraveling Scriptures channel. Do you happen to know the origins of languages? Who taught them? Where did they come from? How were they transmitted to all peoples of humanity? It is interesting to know that in the past there was an imposing tower that reached the heavens. The story of the Tower of Babel is one of the briefest and most significant passages found in the Bible. Why did the people of that generation decide to build a tower? What was the purpose behind your actions? And why was God not pleased with that? But what happened next was different from what happened to the previous generation, such as the flood. God did not choose to destroy them, but took a unique measure. He decided to change people's language. This biblical narrative, as I mentioned earlier, is recorded in the book of Genesis. Today, I'm going to share with you the story of the majestic Tower of Babel, erected by a man named Nimrod. He was known for his wickedness in the eyes of God and his audacity in defying the Creator himself. If you are already a subscriber, we appreciate your support. Leave a like, as this encourages us to continue producing weekly, scripture-based videos for you. However, if you are not subscribed yet, I invite you to watch our video until the end. If it's relevant to you, consider subscribing to our channel so you don't miss out on upcoming content. Come with us in another content on our channel. Throughout human history, an imposing tower rose to the heavens. In this context, a man named Nimrod challenged divine authority. He united the peoples that multiplied after the flood, descendants of Shem, Ham and Japheth. Nimrod, son of Cush and descendant of Ham, somehow managed to unify them to build something that defied God. The name Nimrod, derived from Aramaic and Hebrew, carries relevant meanings. In Hebrew, it refers to rebellion, to the one who rebels against God. Already in Aramaic, the word gabaran is associated with exaltation, one who rises and self-exalts. Therefore, Nimrod means both one who rebels and one who exalts himself, reflecting the defiant nature of this character. As we reflect on the meaning of the name Nimrod, we can see that he was a man who exalted himself and rebelled against God, characteristics common to the enemy of mankind, Satan. The Tower of Babel was located in Mesopotamia, the region where Nimrod built several cities, including Akkad, in the land of Shinar or Shirnir. Now, let's explore the meaning of the name Babel, which derives from the ancient Assyrian, Bavel, or Babel, or simply Babel. This name means, door of El, or way of El, referring to a very old Sumerian term, Babalu, or Babi Ilu, which also has the same meaning of, door of Il, or door to God. As we explore the Phoenician or Hebrew context, we discover that the term Babel means confusion. This tells us the evil plan behind the construction of this imposing building. Interpretive speculation suggests that Nimrod wished to challenge God himself, face El himself, hence the name Tower of Babel. This name symbolized the path towards El, which means God in Semitic languages, or to literally challenge and invade the heavenly realm, the kingdom of heaven. The Midrash reports that during the construction of the tower, when someone asked another for a brick, something they were producing, this brick would pass from hand to hand and, in the end, would fall and break on the ground. People would start crying and wailing saying, "Oh my God! We lost a brick." On the other hand, when someone fell and died while building the tower, they would say, "Look, another one died. Let's replace it." We cry for bricks, but what about people? Would they be crazy? People without sanity? I can guarantee you not. God doesn't want to tell us the story of lunatic people, people with problems. What do we have to learn from them? So we're talking about smart people, who have big drama, essential questions. And they try to answer them through this construction, this place where they are. So, the Bible says that when they got together in this place and started producing bricks, it is interesting that in the land of Babel, at that time, the stones were not strong, so they knew that, as the stones were not strong, they would need to make bricks. So they used clay as raw material and started production. In other words, the Bible tells us that there is a technological advance here. The question is, will this technological advance be used for good or for evil? But what would have motivated Nimrod to devise this plan? Was he a kind of antichrist? It is important to emphasize that Nimrod did not become a powerful ruler for nothing among the peoples of Ham, Japheth and Shem. Great-grandson of Noah, son of Cush, who was in turn the son of Ham, and they were all involved in building the Tower of Babel. For a purpose, you get the idea. Suddenly, everyone came together with one goal, and they argue about this purpose. And here is something quite intriguing. On the one hand, it is perceived that they are afraid of being scattered by God. They want to stay all together in the same place. Initially, this sounds very positive. At the same time, what do they say? Let's build a tower that reaches the heavens. And so, let's go, build our name. An extremely deep explanation is needed to understand the Bible, not superficially, but profoundly. Pay close attention. At Babel, humanity is in shock. Why are you in shock? Because they are mortal. Humans used to live a long time. You see, Noah, who survived the flood, died at the age of 950. We know that Methuselah lived a little longer, reaching 969 years. But we see in the Bible countless people who lived 900 years, 800 years. It seemed that life was eternal. And suddenly, they're realizing it's not. It was not only the flood that destroyed people, but also before that. People are baffled. It's not like it is today, where we know that death is inevitable. Death exists in the world. So they ask the big question, if death exists, what is the meaning of life? Why are we here? Then Nimrod, who certainly was directly influenced by the fallen angels, coming from the enemy himself, and even by the giants. In other cultures, such as Sumeria, Nimrod is considered a giant in his own right or very close to the fallen angels, possessing great magical power. However, God stopped the construction of the Tower of Babel due to Nimrod's evil plan. The builders of the Tower of Babel were gathered there, and God gave all the builders and people present new languages, since before they all spoke the same language. However, what language was this that all the peoples of the world spoke? In ancient times, there was a common language among all peoples, known as the Adamite language, also called the Enochian language or the language of angels. This language was taught by God to Adam and remained in use until the time of the construction of the Tower of Babel, when God gave different languages. This resulted in confusion among the people present at Babel, as each one began to speak a different language. These peoples were of different origins and were divided into three groups: the Hamites, descendants of Ham; the Semites, descendants of Shem; and the Japhethites, descendants of Japheth. Each group received new languages. It was at that moment that all peoples dispersed to different regions of the world, exploring the continents. But what were the specific languages that God gave to the descendants of Shem, Ham and Japheth, resulting in confusion and stopping the construction of the Tower of Babel? The languages we have today, or at least many of them, are believed to be descendants of the languages that originated at the Tower of Babel. Over millennia, languages have evolved and developed due to factors such as accents and other linguistic elements. The oldest languages in the world are considered to be those that were delivered at the Tower of Babel. It is interesting to note that the names of the language families of these languages, or groups of related languages, are called the Hamito-Semitic family. This name was given in reference to the descendants of Shem and Ham, who were brothers and sons of Noah, as mentioned in the biblical narrative. Experts adopted this name because of the existing biblical connection with this language family. In addition to the Hamito-Semitic family, there are other ancient language families, such as the Indo-European family, which encompasses extremely ancient languages. It is interesting to note that the oldest languages in the world that still exist today, or at least those that remain of the oldest, preserve traces of the Adamite language, that is, the language of angels or Enochian language. The oldest languages in the world that retain remnants of the Adamite language, the language of Adam, include Sumerian, Akkadian, Aramaic, Phoenician, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Greek, Latin, Gaelic, among many other languages that are extremely old and carry traces of this primordial language, the first language of humanity. It is true that the Chinese writing of ancient China also goes back to many stories and concepts related to Adam and Eve's Garden of Eden, and even the flood. It is interesting to note that many ancient beliefs, including within Christianity, address the issue of ancient languages all the way back to Babel, and when they do, they relate to both Almighty God and the human heart and the negative feelings of wanting to rise above everything else and rebel, as in the case of Nimrod himself. This connection is often seen in ancient rituals of magic and the occult, in which ancient languages are used. These languages are chosen because they go back to rebellion against God, but they also serve as a reminder that God has separated people so that they will not continue to perform such actions. However, it is important to highlight that, within Christianity and spiritual practices focused on God, when an ancient language is used, an approximation with the Adamite language is sought. We have videos about what the world was like before the flood, which is now appearing for you on the screen, in addition to this playlist from our series, The Origin of Peoples According to the Bible, which will address the divisions of peoples after the events in Babel. Thanks for watching us this far. See you soon.
Yeah, this is a good one for me because I'm getting ready to share some language with you. And then I'm going to tell you in the Bible where it's different from the original meaning, okay? So, way zero, which is an Arabic, I'm sorry, not an Arabic, Amharic Tigrinya word, way zero, which is Wezero, which means queen, right? But when we translate it and we go to Isaiah chapter 3, verse 14, it means princess. In Genesis 32:28, it means Israel. And in Numbers 31:14, it means captain. So now
Hmm.
you have this one word
That means
that
25 things.
originally meant queen is now translated according to what the people of that, uh, whoever wanted to translate this word.
Right.
So you have to
Uh-huh.
understand too that the military, again, Greek military plays an important part in this. They are the ones, again, like I said before, were in, helped in the invention of language. So why is
Mm-hmm.
it that it's so many different meanings, but the one true meaning of way zero means Mrs. or Queen? It doesn't mean prince, it doesn't mean captain, it doesn't mean the other thing that I told you that it meant.
Yeah.
It means queen. So
Mm-hmm.
why did somebody translate, and this is a rhetorical question, I'm to think about. Why was it mistranslated?
Mm-hmm.
That's and a lot of words are mistranslated in different texts. You know what
True.
I'm saying? So
True. Eh,
so I bring these examples up because this is where, I keep saying lost in translation.
mm-hmm. Exactly. And it goes back to also, when you look at Latin, Latin is the root language for a lot of the European, the Indo-European languages. Latin is the root language. So when you look at a Latin word and then you translate it for English, for Spanish, for German, whatever, you end up deriving different meanings or a closely connected meaning to it, and then people take that. It's just like that communications game. You tell somebody one story, and they go to pass it on to another person, and it's like they leave out parts, and then it goes to the next person, and by the time it comes back to you, it's a totally different
Right. So
story.
who's
It's
to
that
say that the
same
stories
thing.
Right. So who's to say the stories we've been told are actually true? If
True.
we're
I
going
was just
based on that
yes.
communication thing that you
I was
talked
just gonna
about?
say that. Yes. So when I hear stories, when I hear people say, this story was passed down for centuries, or this is how they, this is how they explain things through stories over time. It's like, okay, you're automatically telling me then that the story changed over time. So whatever story that you know now may not necessarily be the original story. Actually, it's not the original story. I can guarantee you that, because wherever that story originated from, I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that there was different language used in that time period, because our language, even the
Definitely.
English language, has transcended over time. We're not walking around saying "Thou art though the." We're not saying that. So, so
Right.
our own language has changed over time. So, without a shadow of a doubt, if you're saying something that was spoken centuries ago was translated differently or spoken
But
differently.
here's my thing. You read
Mm-hmm.
this book and in this context once a week,
Mm-hmm.
maybe once a day, I don't know. But the fact that it's here
Yep.
and the original language, the original word way zero does not mean in what it says that it means in Genesis, in Numbers, and what was the other one that
Yeah.
I said? It
Isaiah.
doesn't mean that. So my thing is like, okay, so understanding that the military played an important part since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so since the beginning, they've always been. When it was Africa, Greece was in the middle, and then you had the Roman Empire, right? So the Romans were like, okay, we're just not going to play by everybody's rules. We're going to do what we want to do, right?
Right.
We're going to
Yep.
create a military, and then we're going to go.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're
And
gonna.
that, and that's
We're
and
not going to even ask.
yeah. We're not even going to talk about it.
We're just going
this
to
is
go
what.
and be present, and then
Yes.
do what
This
we
is
do best, right?
exactly. This is what we decree as the law. And it's like, who are you to come in here and change our stuff?
And
It's
there's no
like,
different,
we got the
no
knives, we got
difference
the.
in today's military.
Mm-hmm.
No
Yeah. Same.
difference.
Yeah, it's no different than what we do now. You have uprisings, you have military coups and stuff like that, and they go in. Man, hell, you can look at, ladies and gentlemen, just think about it like this, okay? Look at what's going on in the change of our language today, the meanings of things. Now, gender, since we're going to segue into that, now gender has taken on a different meaning, and so
Right.
you think about the Orwellian factor here. 1984, the book 1984, or the movie. If you want, for those that don't like to read books, you watch the movie 1984 with George Orwell, and you will see exactly how a government rise to power or an entity rise to power, and they change the way things are commonly known. And so 2 plus 2 equals 5. If you say it equals 4, you're shot in the head. This is what happened since the dawn of humanity. So when you sit here and say, well, this is how it originally happened, how the f do you know? Because you wasn't there when it originally happened. Because
Well, see,
things
the
have
thing
changed over
is
time.
when you have certain words, you have Hebrew, you have tablets, you
Mm-hmm.
have concrete information that gives you the origin of which all these words exist, because guess what? The language still exists, right?
Yes,
So you
and
have
and
Mark and you have Tigrinya, and it still exists today. You can go and when you go to
yeah.
Ethiopia, you're gonna speak those languages. So when you
Mm-hmm.
understanding that is the overall original language,
I
and it
would
is a
challenge.
hard language to
Yeah, I
it's
would
a hard
challenge.
language to speak.
No, I agree with you, but I would challenge that even then, the original written language was probably translated at that time.
Oh
You
no,
know,
I know it to be
yeah.
true. See, I know a lot of stuff. I'm just not telling you because I think people would be in awe, shocked. May some people might, be on the floor because they just are in disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the stories, I mean, they're stories. It's storytelling in the Bible.
Yep.
What is to say that everything that they say in the Bible is true? The Bible, if you look at it for what it is, literally is a bunch of stories that
Mm-hmm.
really deal with agriculture, business, and management. Management of people, business, and agriculture.
Very true. Very true. You know,
So, and
I
these stories incorporated stories.
yeah, no, I agree with you. I 100%. And I always say, that as someone had told me a long time ago, everything in the Bible is true, but only some of it happened. So it's like,
Well, how
okay,
could it be true and only some of it happened when? No, no, no. I see. That's
yeah,
because see,
see, uh
again,
huh,
you Jesus is a savior. He's a shepherd. He's a carpenter. Who is he?
right,
Who is
yeah,
he really? Who is he? If he's all the, that's what I'm talking about. Referencing the the language.
mm-hmm,
Okay, so
yeah,
in the beginning he's what I guess a savior, or he's a man, he's a shepherd, he's a carpenter. So he's all these things. But really what is he?
just a
And but
man,
you are calling him the Messiah at the same time. But there's
mm-hmm,
reference to him being
being so many
a
different things,
person, an average person, yet he is called the Messiah.
mm-hmm, yep,
I'm just trying to
absolutely,
fi-
yeah, I know it's crazy, but ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our series on the origins of humanity, and you see how we ended this with the origins of languages. So every tribe that that's been scattered throughout the world, they have their languages, have the ways they communicate and everything else, all the way from written language, spoken language, to just signs, symbols, through hands and gestures. So it's something that's intriguing, and I would challenge people to go and research cuneiform. Cuneiform is an ancient written language under the Sumerian catalog, and you'll see how that was translated over time. It's very interesting stuff. But we're almost out of time, and I want to get to our next segment, and this here is going to open up the floodgates. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy.
You could look at it, okay, well, let's look at it from a historical perspective. Where did this come from within the medical field? Let's look at it from philosophically, from Marxism, the role there, and second wave feminism. Let's look at it from a contemporary way of social media and what's called rapid onset gender dysphoria. Let's look at the different origins instead of saying, that's the fault of it. And so you can look at it from a medical perspective. People say, oh, it's the sexual revolution. It's 1960s. Like, no, this was way underway before the 1960s. And when I started to trace it back, people are like, oh, it's Dr. John Money. Okay, where'd he get his stuff from? Well, Harry Benjamin. Well, where'd he get his stuff from? Well, Magnus Hirschfeld. And you start going back, there was this guy, Magnus Hirschfeld, who was in Berlin, Germany, and he ran this Institute for Sexual Science. This place was creepy. I mean, this guy was really out there. He had a museum of sexual torture devices there. The woman of the house was a man 30 years younger than him that he had sexual relations with, that later committed suicide. And this is the guy that first started doing these sex reassignment surgeries in 1920. Wow. He started with castration of a male.
Oh my.
I think by 22, he gave a double mastectomy to a woman. By 1930, he tried to give a man a false vagina. And so what ended up happening to that man is he died 14 months later after an abyss of suffering. And while all this stuff was going on, there was an American by the name of Dr. Harry Benjamin. And he heard about this Magnus Hirschfeld fellow. And he said, I want you to come out to do a speaking tour in the United States. And so while that patient was dying of this gender reassignment surgery, this guy, Magnus Hirschfeld, was welcomed into America as like the Einstein of sex. And he started this lecture tour. Now, Harry Benjamin became interested in this whole subject by a guy named Alfred Kinsey, who introduced him to a man who identified as transsexual. So Harry Benjamin wanted the surgeries that Magnus Hirschfeld was performing over in Germany to be more accessible in America. Because if you wanted one of these surgeries in America, you had to fly to like Casablanca to a doctor out there who would do these things. And so he said, I want to make these more accessible here. So let's start a research team here. So Dr. Harry Benjamin started this foundation that later became WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. This is now considered kind of the gold standard of the standards of care for transgender individuals today. But this guy, Harry Benjamin, is the one who started this thing. And he said, well, I need to get a research team together. And one of the guys on the research team was Dr. John Money. And so Dr. John Money was working with Harry Benjamin after Magnus Hirschfeld came and did this tour of all his like science experiments he was doing, hailed as the Einstein of sex. And then you've got Dr. John Money coming into the picture. More people are familiar with him because of the good work of Matt Walsh. Dr. John Money, just to set the table for this guy identified as a polyamorous, bisexual nudist who thought that pornography could be helpful to marriage, endorsed pedophilia, and believed that many wives think that it's good when the husband has an incestuous relationship with their children because it relieves her of the burden of needing to be the full sexual outlet for the male and distributes that among the children. This is Dr. John Money. This is the guy we're talking about as kind of the godfather here in the States of this transgender movement. And so he was not a scientist. This guy's a psychologist, and he was fascinated with cases of ambiguous genitalia at birth. And how do we raise these kids, male or female? And they realize it's a lot easier to destroy an incompletely developed penis than it is to construct one. And so they typically would take boys who have ambiguous genitalia and castrate the boys. And then he said, well, maybe we can just raise these as girls. And they started doing these different types of experiments. And then the perfect opportunity came across his path, which was this family, John and Janet Reimer, had a little boy. I think it was 1965. They had twins, Bruce and Brian. And then when the babies were about 8 months old, they suffered something called phimosis, which is a condition where it's very difficult for the kid to urinate. You go to the pediatric doctor and he says, oh, well, you need to give him, a circumcision and that should ease things up. So they schedule the appointment, they go in. And apparently the doctor used a circumcision tool that involved like an electric shock. So what it would do is it would cauterize the wound to keep it from bleeding too much. And apparently there's some big mishap that happened during the cauterization surgery of Bruce's circumcision, and the penis was destroyed. And the parents obviously traumatized. They canceled Brian's surgery, and then his phimosis just resolved on its own. So the whole thing was unnecessary to begin with. And they go home just traumatized with a little 8-month-old boy with a destroyed penis. And they're like, what do we do with this poor boy? And one night they're up watching TV, and they see this Dr. John Money on a TV show just hailing the progress being made at Johns Hopkins Hospital with these new ways that, girls, are identifying as boys and being raised in this way because gender roles. And this is the first time it was ever used in like 1955. He's talking about that stuff in his research papers, that we can raise boys because these are just social constructs.
Gender, when did this word come into play?
Well, the first time we find it in the English language is in the 1400s, exclusively with grammar, that noun is masculine, feminine, or neuter. And the 15th century, it started to be used as synonymous with sex, but predominantly it was always in terms of grammar. And so that's the way it always was. In fact, there's no record of it in the medical literature before 1955, when Dr. John Money introduced the term gender roles. And so that's the first place it shows up anywhere on the radar. Today, it's a really problematic word, in my opinion, because it's so extraordinarily vague. I mean, we've got gender reveal parties. Okay, what are we revealing? Biological sex. Okay, but it's a gender reveal party? I thought gender was your internal sense of identity. Like, the meanings can be so different when people have a conversation. It creates a lot of confusion. So it's better to speak of sex and sexual identity than gender, which can have so many different meanings. And so, but he was promoting this idea that gender isn't just distinct from sex, it can be divorced completely from it. And so he thought, this is the perfect match. Control. I've got a twin set. When this one, we can just castrate the kid. And he talked the parents into that just before Bruce turned 2 years old, was castrated. And he said, look, he's going to be raised a perfectly healthy woman. She won't be able to have kids. She won't be able to have kids, but we're going to put him in dresses and change the name to Brenda. And he will be attracted to males and live a happy married life. And you'll just see, it'll go great. It did not go great. I mean, they gave this little girl, boy, a jump rope. And he said, the only thing I need that for is to tie people up and whip them with it. They gave him a sewing machine, and he took it, he disassembled it to see how the thing worked. He was not interested at all. And growing up in like grade school, the kids teased him like, you're a gorilla. Like, what are you? Because he's in a dress, but he's all guy. And he'd get in fist fights with the other kids. And I mean, the anxiety, the depression, the mother turned to infidelity and alcoholism. I mean, the whole family was imploding. While meanwhile, Dr. Money was seeing the boys every year and molesting the kids and saying, okay, now you need to act out these sexual things, and I'll take pictures because it's important that you learn your gender roles, and like really messed up crap. So by the time the poor boy, Bruce Reimer, Brenda, was like 13 years old. Like, he was refusing, like, I refuse to see that man. And on the last visit, I mean, he totally had a nervous breakdown and tried to run away because Dr. Money was trying to introduce him to a man who identified as female. And then eventually the dad broke down and told him the truth for the first time. And Bruce's first question was, what was my name? He told him his name, and then Bruce ended up changing his name to David, and in memory of David defeating this Goliath, that this won't be the end of me. Wow. And then he found out that his case was being used all over the country by Dr. John Money in these academic forums of like, this has been a great success, and he's just transitioning to a mother hen, and this was being hailed, and the feminists were like, hey, look at this, gender is a social construct. Women don't have to be relegated to domestic duties because these are just cultural impositions. Men and women are the same, and this was all flowing out of his pseudoscience, and it had a tragic ending. His brother died. He ended up committing suicide himself. He got married, adopted a couple kids, and took his own life. David did. But thankfully, before he passed away, he was able to become an advocate for this. He was on the Oprah Winfrey show.
How did he have a couple of kids if he didn't have a penis?
Adoption. Yeah. So he adopted the kids.
All right, Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, Oprah Winfrey had him on, and he explained this harrowing thing he went through, and how many other kids started coming out of the woodworks after that. Like, Dr. Money did the same thing to me, And so this guy, and he said, David unfortunately was lost to follow up, so I'm not quite sure what happened to him. He knew exactly what was going on.
Tiffany, I saw you. We got 2 minutes. We got 2 minutes here. I saw you like going bonkers in the green room. So go ahead and take it away.
You have to understand, I just had this conversation with someone, and I did not say anything really wrong. And I didn't even say anything like this gentleman said, I'm sure he's giving all the facts, right? But, he's like, and conflicted. Mm-hmm. And I said the same thing on another platform not too long ago, and we were talking about transgender, and I said, well, it can create confusion. And it psychologically. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm so grateful for that video, because I did not say anything that wasn't or has not been said. Yeah, and it was just right. And I was just and I was talking about women. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about the beautiful nature about being a woman and who we are, and we're nurturers, and we care for all of humanity and what we've done throughout time. And it's, because what's going on today, they do have what is called a movement called in period poverty. And that is a whole nother subject. That is, I
Yeah.
was conversing with someone today. Everything is feeding into all this whole thing, this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you've
It
got
is, and we're
sub
gonna
movements attached to the movement.
to move. Yeah, and we're gonna, ladies and gentlemen, we're like completely out of time, but we're gonna break this down. I just want to give an introductory to what we're gonna get into, over the next few weeks because it's craziness how our society is. I'm not gonna say it's evolutionizing; it's devolving. We're in a state of devolution because we're trying to take and change things of the norm, and we're gonna get into the gender role thing, the social constructs, and we're gonna get into all this, ladies and gentlemen. So you tune in again next week. And oh, by the way, before I close, the World Cup 2022. Research what happened at that, during in Qatar, from the previous videos, because yeah, there's a lot of craziness, and there's some biblical implications to the things that went on at the World Cup in Qatar or Qatar. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of here. Tiffany, thank you once again. See you next week,
Thank
and
you.
we're gonna get into this one. So, y'all be safe out there.
Yes.
God bless you all. Have a fantastic week and be safe.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
God, we need you now. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh, God.
You are watching the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.tecntv.com.